Take it away, Kevin.
Hi, Nina. Hi, everybody. Can you hear and see me okay, Nina?
Yes, I can.
All right, just check in to be sure. Welcome aboard. Hello, everybody. It's great to be back for another AIM webinar, this time with our friends from Microsoft Canada, talking about insider risk and data security. It's an important topic, I think, because information governance and data protection practices are changing significantly. Look, we all know about external threats and cyber hacks that can often capture the news, but risks from inside the organization can be just as prevalent and harmful. Indeed, according to Microsoft research, 20% of security breaches and disclosures are due to people who are inside the organization. And now, with millions of people working remotely, data is being created and accessed and shared and stored outside the traditional boundary of the enterprise. And as a result, the risk of employees disclosing private or sensitive content, either inadvertently or maliciously, cannot be overlooked. At AIM, we often say that information management is much more than just managing risk and compliance, but when you do and where you do need to keep your eye on risk, what important aspects should demand our attention? So in this webinar, we will explore insider risk and ways to identify and mitigate those risks. We'll learn what insider risk is, why it's something that we should not overlook, what tools and approaches can help us conduct an insider risk assessment, which elements are best characterized in a successful program, and how we should design our risk programs to grow and advance in the face of increasing risk. So with all of that said, let's bring our guest expert on board today, Stefan Laguerre. Stefan, are you with us?
I am.
Hello,
Thanks a lot.
Stefan.
Hi.
Welcome aboard. Stefan Laguerre is an information protection specialist at Microsoft. He is an expert in data security and privacy and compliance. Since 2008, he's been working with numerous European, Middle Eastern, and Asian companies on identifying the best approaches for data security, and he's with us today. So Stefan, welcome to the program. Tell us more. What is your advice and perspective regarding keeping corporate information safe from insider risk?
Well, it's a long debate. First of all, thanks a lot for having me with you as of today. There's many things that you can do to protect your assets, of course, but usually we protect it against external threats. But unfortunately, there is a lot of insider threats, and usually we also think about any malware, but it's not only about that. And I hope in today's session that I will be able to show you some, if it's working, of course, some of the risks you might be facing and how you can detect them. And I hope it's okay. You can see my presentation. I take it for yes. There is many reports, analysis on the market that can explain you that you are facing numerous risks and also insider threats. So obviously we're always thinking about people stealing your information. And of course, this is something you should be aware of. But sometimes not only about that, it's only about bad habits or just because you sent an email to the wrong recipient. So this is considered also as an insider risk. We've seen with the remote working, obviously, for the past 2-3 years, that there is numerous risks that happen more and more, just mainly because companies were not prepared, they were not ready to have people working remotely with a VPN or without any VPN, or they didn't configure access to their information using specific tools. So we know for sure that there are risks, and the key question here is, do you see them? Because protecting yourself is always good, but do you know what you are protected against? And at least, are you able to identify them? We know there is at least 3 very specific insider risk profiles. So we're gonna call them malicious, negligence, and accidental for the profiles. The kind of leakage is very different. As you can see, the malicious is really trying to exfiltrate your information, where the negligent and the accidental ones, it's just unintentional. meaning there are their own reasons, but they do not want to exfiltrate information. Malicious people are going to abuse their access to the information, whatever kind of information they are using or they get access to, but they are trying to abuse this access to perhaps send it externally or sell it, or because they are leaving the company for any reasons. And sometimes it could also be in the goal of having or to damage the brand of the company itself. Regarding the negligence, it's just a misuse, and they have been working from a very specific way, in a very specific way for many years, and they do not understand why that should be different as of today. So they continue to do the same processes with the same information without respecting the policies in place or rules in place regarding how they can protect the information. The accidental one, it's just a mistake. As I said, you just sending an email to the wrong Stefan, and then I have your email. So this is not voluntarily done, of course, but it's also an exfiltration of your information, meaning as soon as it's outside, potentially you've lost control of it. And then this is the awareness. We know for sure that malicious and accidental people, because it's accidental, they are kind of aware of the existing policies. But the negligent one is willing to continue to work as he has done for many years. So he prefers to ignore those IT policies. There's two types mainly then of indicators you can be using to identify risky behaviors. And then after that, if you are facing just an insider threat, which is deliberate exfiltration or an accidental one. So in this case, we know for sure that it's about half and half, but you need to be able to understand what kind of indicators can help you to identify those users, those risky behaviors, and after that, perhaps find ways to be protected against them. So, of course, regarding the malicious insider, we're thinking about people trying to sell the information of the company, intellectual property, customer information, whatever, or they are moving to a competitor company, so they would like to take all the information with them because it's kind of valuable. But it could also be someone inside the company who had an HR issue, or because they do not feel aligned with the corporate strategy, or because they were not able to get the promotion they were expecting to get. So this is the key factors you could consider to identify potentially risky people, meaning people with risky behaviors. In the accidental ones, it's more about sometimes lack of awareness, manipulating the wrong information, sending, copying, losing such information, trying to work at the most effectively way they can find, and sometimes about sharing a sensitive document on a SharePoint to an external email, and sometimes can also be a non-corporate email like Gmail or Outlook.com, for example. These are risky behaviors because if it's shared, you can lose control over your information. And if you lose control over your information, just assume that everybody got access to it. And we know for sure that's very tricky. For example, we know because or thanks to the pandemic that we were all forced to work remotely, meaning IT and companies needed to adapt themselves and give access to sensitive information, sensitive infrastructure, even to people remotely. And for some companies, it was also to provide computers. So when you are not ready for such use case, how can you handle that? Well, you do your best, that's for sure. For example, a lot of companies decided to trust Microsoft and use Microsoft Teams for their meetings, for example. But then 2 years after, the question came, oh, can I secure my teams? How can I protect all the information that are shared within my teams? Can I prevent people joining my teams? Can I prevent people to access the sensitive information shared inside my teams? So there is a lot of questions that happen afterwards. And this is clearly some kind of risky controls of risky projects that you have to deliver very, very quickly just to ensure that people can still work. But you need to ensure that you can identify risky behaviors, or at least some kind of indicators that could lead you to understand that you're facing someone who's manipulating wrongly your information. So for example, users working with your sensitive information and sharing the information outside or inside the company. And of course, there's many risks, but if you share the information outside with someone which is under contract, for example, who has a managed device or not, you need to understand if you're facing a low risk or high risk. If the information is protected, the device is managed, and you have secured everything, even sometimes with conditional access, you are secured. But in the meantime, if the people who has access to the highly confidential information and you try to share it to someone, and because you don't know exactly who can get access to that, you just create a link within your SharePoint and share it, copy paste into emails or chat. You don't know exactly who will get access to it. So ensuring that you can protect this information will restrict people to get access to the content, ensuring that only people with the correct access and the need to access will be able to access the content. But we know for sure that as soon as you're working, you're also collaborating, but sometimes you are copying files on USB devices, or you're trying to print it because sometimes it's much more easier to print some things, to make some modifications, or just to read it in the transportation, for example. So again, as soon as it leaves your infrastructure or your managed environment, you've lost the control of your informations and whatever can be done with that. So the goal after that is just to restrict such activities and prevent users to do some copying on USB devices for very specific information, or ensuring they might not be able to print at home, or they might not be able to upload documents outside of SharePoint, your corporate SharePoint environment. And this is where, of course, we're thinking about DLP. With DLP, whatever the technology is, meaning data loss or data leakage prevention. But the goal here is just to ensure that when people is trying to share information by many ways, we are able to identify first the value of the information, if it's sensitive or not. And after that, identify if the way the user would like to share the information is authorized or not. Of course, if it's authorized, no issue. Sometimes it's authorized, but you would like to add an extra layer of protection, so you can apply encryption, or you can apply right management systems directly on the file to prevent people to print the document, might be able to get it, but not being able to print it. Or you can prevent users to copy it on USB by default. They can still use USB devices, but not for this very sensitive information. So now the information, when it's shared, it's going to be shared between many people. I mean, this is the meaning of the information. When you are collaborating, many people are accessing your information and they're sharing it. So how do you manage that? Perhaps someone has managed device, someone do not have a managed device, or maybe using some very specific tools which are not approved by the IT. For example, like if you would like to create a PDF, you would like to use some online tools because you don't have to pay licenses for that. Yeah, but in the meantime, it's kind of exfiltration, because what happens to the data you just uploaded on this PDF conversion online tool, for example? So here the goal is to understand exactly what kind of behaviors users have with your information. So sensitive information, they're working on a project Copperfield, for example, and they received an information or an offer for a competitor. This might be also the opportunity for the user to ask himself, okay, if I'm leaving the company, perhaps I should get some information with me, because I've been working with this customer for many years, or these are my file, or this is my source code, I've developed it. So perhaps I would like to take it with me. But what we know for sure, it's data by default, it's not moving. Users, people are moving it. So we need to identify what kind of information people are accessing and what they're doing with that. Also, of course, as soon as we have some kind of indicators that people are leaving the company, that might also raise an alert saying, okay, it's been doing something with your information. So there is many ways after that for smart people to try to exfiltrate information. First step, for example, you download your source code from SharePoint or any other site, for example. So you download it on your endpoint. That's it. And then you try to create a zip file. And then you rename the zip file like PDF, for example, and you try to upload it. So basically, you might raise or not an alert because downloading files is not an issue. Creating a zip is not an issue. Modifying the file extension, not an issue. Uploading to something which is potentially corporate, that's not an issue. But the issue here is it's the sequence. So someone was about to leave the company, downloading files, trying to obfuscate them, and then uploading them to any SaaS applications, whether it's authorized or not, meaning sanctioned or sanctioned, that might raise then an alert. Okay. So the way it works is we can reuse such indicators, such little alerts with the sequence detection and say, okay, now we are understanding that this user is trying potentially to steal some data because downloaded it, obfuscating it, uploaded it, and then deleted it. So clearly we're facing some kind of a malicious behavior here. So we are able to, and we should be able to collect and correlate the same way CIEM is working. So the CIEM is collecting IOCs, correlating them, playing with your own workbook, and then raising an alert. Just imagine that in the data security landscape, we are able to get a lot of alerts coming from someone trying to declassify information, from DLP, from Exchange Online, SharePoint, sharing document to wide recipient or generic email domain, for example. And then we correlate everything based on all the information we can get. And then we have the scenario, the sequence detection, which can help you to understand that someone has been doing many activities, raising then an alert on which you can work and then create a case. And in this case, you are able to perform more investigation, understand more about what the user has been doing with your information and potentially what he has been doing since for the past 2 months, for example, with your information. So in this scenario, we know for sure that when someone's trying to access your information, you need to first have a clear understanding and a visibility in the document. So tracking your documents is very effective in this way. As soon as you apply classification, you can track the information shared, whether it's internal, external, and so on. On top of that, of course, because you classified, you can decide to apply encryption and or DRM like only if I get authenticated, I can see the content of the document, but I cannot print it, meaning you still have the control. And at any time, you can revoke my access on your information. And after that, there is many risks that exist, of course. For example, you copy it on USB, you try to upload it, and then you can prevent users to do that. Or in the meantime, you can identify when it's been accidentally exfiltrated, how user get access to the information, working with third party, not working on SharePoint because of restrictions, policies in place. So then the people say, oh, I have a personal Dropbox you can use if you want. I'm creating a folder for you. And then you just need to upload your documents. Then the information leave the company. If it's not protected, you're going to lose control over your information again. So just assume that if it's out of your scope, it's everybody's scope. It's on the internet. Luckily, there's many ways to protect your assets, but the first one is recommendation from Public Safety in Canada. So it's an official website. There is a lot of information, and there is a specific page on insider threats. So there's there are three pillars to protect your assets. So the first one is to have an holistic approach to security, creating a culture, training people, create clear policies, and understanding exactly how partners can be a risk for your information. Then you're going to know and empower your people. By knowing your people, it means understanding the actual processes. Why are they sharing this information this way? Perhaps it's based on business requirements or not, but you need to understand that. And of course, training, alerts, awareness, and so on, and like also exercises is a key factor, a key success factor. People need to understand that it's authorized or not. And having an email only once a month as a reminder is not enough. Real-time notifications is perfect. You're trying to do that, you are not allowed. Please do the other way, or you need to do that, you can bypass the blocking, but be sure we will get back to you to identify why you needed to share this information this way. And of course, always protect what's critical for you, your assets, your applications, ensure you monitor your information, that if you lose access to your information, if you lose the control over your information, what can you do to mitigate the risks? And the last but not the least, protect your data. Could be DLP, could be encryption, could be authentication, whatever you would like to apply it on. But you need to ensure that your information are protected. So where do we start? We know for sure it's a matter of people, but not only, it's also about your data, because this is what you're working on. Protect your data from malicious activities coming from people. So for your data, there is many questions you should ask yourself. What information is really important for you to help you prioritize? Where does it reside? Is it on-premise, in the cloud? Is it cloud? Does this application is a secure cloud? Do you have put security controls or security measures on top of this SaaS application, for example? How can you protect your information? Is it about authentication, choosing another SaaS operator, SaaS application, applying encryption? Depends on what you would like to do, what you can do. Data lifecycle is also very important, because what's confidential today might not be tomorrow, or it's confidential internally, but you can share it with a partner, whatever partner, because it's processing your data, your customers' data. So you need to understand the life cycle of your information. And ultimately, how can you ensure the integrity of your information? Because we're thinking about stealing, but sometimes in some very specific use cases, people store information and then modify the actual information within the company. And at some point, there was a huge difference between the corporate information versus the information they took with them. And whether it's data masquerading or data pruning, they would like to ensure that you won't be able to access what they would like to get with them. For example, source code. User is going to modify its source code. You'll get the source code, but it's not working. But the people will get away with the information in the source code which is working. And of course, processes. Do not forget business first. So you need to understand why people are managing or using your information this way. So of course, like regular project, you need to define your processes, detect the informations or behavior required, identify actors, information, locations, assess the risk, and then manage the risks. Of course, like any process, it's never done. So as soon as you've done it's done, you need to redo it again, because, well, business evolved, process can change, data will change. So you need to ensure that you're still up to date with your processes which are managed, which are accessed by your people, and all the data they can get access to. On the technology side, there is a lot of things to do. So of course, we're talking about awareness, zero trust. It's been years we're talking about zero trust, all the location you should be working on. And we need to understand after that what you can do from a technical standpoint. So of course, we think about classification, manual, automatic, recommendation, tips, or after that, if you need to track changes when someone try to declassify an information, if you would like to authorize it or prevent it, and also apply some kind of content protection, like encryption, like DRM, like prevent people from copying content of a document. On top of that, we have DLP. DLP, it's more focusing on the way that users can share your information, how you can prevent them to share the way they want, but share the way you want. So again, awareness is a key here. Pop-up notifications, being able to bypass notification to ensure that you have a business requirements actually to share this information. There is many ways to do that. There is many ways to detect information, of course. There is multiple areas to cover. Keep it simple, always. And after that, it's encryption. So where would you like to apply encryption? Of course, you're not going to encrypt everything. Applying encryption on every single document might be very painful for you, especially at some point if you need to decrypt it. So just be focused on what's very important. Identify what you would like to do, the scenarios. Would you like to encrypt automatically when you're sending an email to your partner, to a third party, to customers, very specific documents based on classification level, based on location, for example. So you can apply encryption almost everywhere. In every step of this technical implementation, awareness is a key. Again, your best sponsor is the user, nobody else. But we know for sure it's not enough because it's very manual process. It's very vertical, it's separated, so it's not enough. We need more. So we're thinking about advanced features like machine learning, very granular policies, being able to use dictionaries, templates, wizards, and so on. Everything that will help you to have an easy beginning of your journey, meaning have a kickstart and ensuring that you're using the best of the solution to protect right now what needs to be protected. But again, it's not enough. We need then to work on the user behavior in analytics, UEBA. So it exists for many years here, but how does it work exactly? So the first thing you're going to do is, of course, to clearly configure or collating alerts coming from multiple solutions, like collating incidents coming from the classification and the DLP and encryption, and perhaps when someone did something wrong with your information. So we need to collate almost everything. Oh, okay. Then you need to ensure you are able to prioritize, meaning if someone raised an alert because they copy a document on a USB device, is it really important what's inside the document? If it's just some kind of recipe, there's no emergency over this alert. But having someone copying source code on USB device, this is high priority incidents. So we are here to help you to prioritize using an UBA, focusing on what's very important, focusing on the alerts. Then you also have to keep a focus on the privacy and transparency, meaning if you raise alerts, you should be able to pseudo-anonymize, ensuring that people who get access to the console won't be able to identify or to see what's been doing this very specific user with such information and what's been working and what kind of folders or files it's been working on. Don't need that too. But transparency is also a key element, because as soon as a user knows that based on awareness, pop-ups, notification, and so on, that you are able to understand how they manipulate the information, it might also reduce risks about leakage or exfiltration. You need also risky behavior identification. So the way it works is to use advanced sequence detection, for example. The way it works is to understand that someone has been downloading documents and then trying to put them in the zip file and then renaming the zip file to a doc, PDF, whatever, and then trying to uploading it to a very specific application, SaaS application, for example. This is called a sequence detection. And the same goes for the SIEM, it's sequence detection. So we're going to use those alerts, correlate them to raise a big alert saying, okay, we know for sure that Stefan is doing something about this information. He has a suspicious behavior, just suspicious behavior. So you can raise a case, and then after that, people will be able to understand what kind of issues they are dealing with. You can also ensure that you're going to apply dynamically protection controls. So just imagine that this way, Stefan is doing a lot of stuff that shouldn't be authorized. Either risky user. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dynamically modify the level of protection that applies to him. And perhaps usually he's allowed to print at home. Now he's no longer able to print because risky behavior. I have a bad risk score. And because of that, I might not be able to do whatever I would like to do with my information. Perhaps I won't be able to download highly confidential documents anymore. I will be able to see them, but might not be able to download them. So you can dynamically reuse those information coming from the UBA engine into your DLP policies, which is very interesting because you don't need to focus on very specific people. Everything is done dynamically. Risky user, modify DLP controls on his profile, and that's it. And also, you need some very specific connectors. It depends on the area you're working on, but getting feedbacks from your physical access system saying that Stefan got access to the stocks or to the warehouse and so on might also be some kind of alerts saying, okay, Stefan is doing something wrong with all the stuff that exists in the warehouse or in the data center also, for example. Stefan is leaving, get a lot of information, is our network administrator, and now he's trying to access the data centers, for example. This is a risky behavior. A chat connector, it helps you to understand when someone resigns or is fired or perhaps had a promotion issue, just to raise an alert, an indicator in which you can use into your sequence detection. So data theft, of course, when someone is leaving the company, trying to take some information, you protect it or not protect it, depends on what you've been doing. But if you are protected and you have dynamic policies, you can ensure your information will be protected. If not, consider that all the information the user got access to, well, he has a copy with him if you have not protecting them or if you have not restricted some activities on his devices. Same goes for the collaboration. If you are sharing your information, ensure that your information are shared with the correct people. Highly confidential information should be shared only with recipient that get access to it, that should be accessing it, and who has the need to know or the need to access also. As soon as someone is able to access sensitive information, again, you just lose the control over your information. So insider risk management, how does it work at Microsoft? We are focusing on the privacy. Again, it's not because you have alerts saying that someone has been doing something wrong that you need to identify everything or to identify the user. Not yet, it's just an alert. You're not working on a case. So it's multiple alerts that will be created. And at some point, you can decide to work on these alerts, which became a case, and perform then investigation. It has to be simple, make it easy. I mean, potentially people who will have to deal with the insider risk management console might not be technical at all. There might be someone working from the HR, accessing a dashboard, trying to identify if they have some risky users inside the company this week, for example. So you need to understand the sequence after that: downloading, obfuscating, and then cleaning up all this information. This is some kind of issues you might be facing. And of course, when someone is doing that more and more over the past 2 weeks, 2 months, or at least since he resigned or is about to get fired, this is clearly another indicator you should be working on. So you need visual insights. The way it works is only admins can easily understand what content is very sensitive here. So you need to just have multiple alerts, and then multiple alerts might be different. Is it based on classification, exfiltration, suspicious activities, and so on? So we just need to get some alerts, which are the dots, and after that, connect the dots with the sequence detection. As soon as you're able to connect the dots, you are able to get a lot of forensic evidence if you need to, meaning even from the endpoints. And then you can work on this security incident, which we call a case. You need to know the content, of course. So as soon as someone is working with your information, you need to ensure that they need to access the information and what they're doing with that. Is it compliant communication, what they are doing with that? You need to understand also the intent. Is someone trying to copy something on USB or anything else? And then the benchmark. This is very interesting because in the same team, you are able to evaluate if someone is doing something differently within the same team. Meaning with my colleagues, we are doing the same job. Is it normal that I'm downloading 400 documents a day, obfuscating them, exfiltrating them, and then deleting them? Not sure. So I can be benchmarked against my coworkers, which is great because it raises alerts based on behavior analysis. Even if they're working on the same document, usually you should have different controls over there, depending on kind of profiles or if they are used to access this information. You can decide to have different protection levels based on different controls or criteria. For example, we know for sure that we have someone leaving the company who decide to resign, downloaded a lot of stuff, and obfuscating them, and then we're raising alerts. So what we're going to do here with adaptive protection is, okay, no, your risk score is not great. So instead of having just a pop-up saying what you're doing is not great, and at some point you could get a pop-up saying, are you sure you want to do that to bypass the blocking pop-up? You will now block the activity. You won't be able to copy something on USB. You won't be able to send this email to external addresses, and so on and so on and so on. This is based on my risk score again. But if you usually work with this information, but right now you just printed something that you shouldn't have printed actually, but you didn't know that, or you need to print it because you need to see how it's going to be once printed, for example, you can raise an alert. So you're going to get a pop-up saying, are you sure you would like to print that? Yeah, I need to print that. That's it. Okay. And after that, because of benchmark or because I'm working as usual, my risk score will decrease and I will get back to usual behavior. And I would just get one pop-up, just like you're printing something very sensitive, just go get it. We have a lot of resources and you get the content also, but we have a new ebook to help you working on that, of course. You can start a 90-day free trial if you want to evaluate inside your environment if you are facing some risky behaviors, even without deploying any agents on your endpoints. And we have a specific compliance and risk hub, which is available for you. And that's it for me. I don't know if there are some questions.
Very good. That is Stefan Laguerre, Information Protection Specialist at Microsoft. Stefan, thank you so much for your really practical and pointed approach and advice. It was interesting. I noted that you mentioned that of insider breaches or insider violations, if you will, you mentioned there was about 50-50 inadvertent versus actually intended or malicious. Was that about right?
Yeah, exactly. It's about 50-50.
About 50-50. I find that interesting. So if Microsoft's research is pointing me to 20% of my breaches are due to internal factors, about half of that 20% is due to malicious, and half of that is due to inadvertent disclosure. You gave us a lot of great examples. Can you give us an example of one of the most common inadvertent breaches and one of the most common malicious breaches so that we have something that we may be looking for initially right away?
Yeah, inadvertent, it's, for example, you're sending an email to the wrong Stefan. You're working with someone on a project, and I sent you an email to discuss about one of your Microsoft feature, but I shouldn't get this email because I'm not the recipient. I do not have the right to access the content. But unfortunately for you, I'm here into your auto-completion cache, and you just click send without checking again, because usually you have only one Stefan that you are sending an email to. So This is kind of very easy exfiltration you could be facing. Could be also the USB key you put information on, and then you just lose the USB key somewhere. You don't know where. Regarding the malicious, usually It's about someone leaving the company and think that whatever is being working on belongs to him or to her, and which is not true actually, because it belongs to the company. Or because you're moving to a competitor, you think that it should be very interesting for you for a new job to bring with you your the existing customer list or existing list of direct or indirect customers of your company with you. So this is also some kind of risky behavior because you lose control of the information.
And what actions should I take? Okay, we have a breach, whether it's malicious or unintended, but it's a breach. And what's the first thing that we should do publicly when we discover a breach?
So just assume that as soon as you have a breach, it's a bit too late, meaning you did not have the correct controls in place to prevent that, or someone found a way to bypass them. As soon as you found that there is a breach, the recommendations more and more, whether it's in Quebec or in Europe with the GDPR, the recommendation is just notify your customers, your users, your collaborators, notify them that potentially information has been lost. Because at some point, there's huge difference between trying to do the things good after the breach instead of doing nothing and 2 years after that someone discovered that actually the information was resold somewhere on the internet. Then there you get a lack of credibility and there is a brand impact.
All right, very good. That is Stefan Laguerre from Microsoft. Stefan, thank you so much for being a great guest today and for giving us great information on this webinar today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, very good. Well, at this point, I would like to turn it back over to Nina to close us out. Nina, take off.
Yes, Kevin. AIM has some exciting things coming up, and more importantly, our AIM 2023 conference. So, those of you that may not be aware, AIM's 2023 conference is going to be in New Orleans this year, and the focus is going to be information management in the content and the flow of work. So, it's a comprehensive and proven methodology for mastering your organization's content to operate more effectively, reduce costs, and stay out of trouble. Your role as an information management professional is always evolving, so now is the ideal time to expand your knowledge of automation and analytics to create real business values for your organization. Register now and you won't want to miss it. As we bring this webinar to a close, a few last minute reminders. We've recorded this webinar so you can catch anything you want to hear again in a recap email that'll be sent within 24 hours. A link to the resources for this webinar was put in the chat. You'll find a copy of this and the presentation, as well as additional resources through that link. Don't forget to take our feedback survey and let us know how we did. A big thank you to our sponsors, Microsoft Canada, for a wonderful, informative webinar. And before we leave, I would like to ask Stefan if you have any last minute key takeaways for our audience.
Yeah, just something out of the blue. If you are not able to understand where are your information or how they are used, you are not able to say you're safe. You have no control over them, so you have no way to say that you're good or not. So it's like when you're driving your car, you need something to tell you that you're good or not regarding your speed. So you need some tooling and you need also awareness. Awareness is the key in any information protection project.
Absolutely. And what about you, Kevin?
Well, I guess I was surprised to learn that half of the insider breaches are malicious. And so that surprised me a bit. But I guess what didn't surprise me is the risk that presents itself. Our folks working inside our organizations are the ones that are working with our information most often. So insider risk is definitely something that we should be considering in our risk profiles. And so this has been another great AIM webinar, and I'm glad that we had a chance to explore the topic.
Absolutely. Thanks again to Microsoft Canada and to our wonderful host and MC, Kevin Crane. This is Nina from AIM saying see you next time, everyone. Take care.
Bye, everybody.